The words slipped out before Amanda Hayes could stop them. Kyunbangji Nansek. Arrogant bastard. She'd said it quietly, barely above a whisper, meant only for herself as she watched the man at table 7 dismiss Ji-won with a gesture so casual it bordered on contempt. Just another wealthy patron in an expensive suit who thought the world existed to serve him. Before we continue with Amanda's story, do let me know where you are watching from. I'll send you a goodwill message. Amanda didn't think he'd heard her. She was wrong. His head turned slowly, deliberately, like a predator catching an unexpected scent. Dark eyes, nearly black in the restaurant's ambient lighting, found hers across the dining room of Moonlight, Manhattan's most exclusive Korean fusion restaurant. And then he smiled. Not friendly, not polite. Something far more dangerous. "Dashi haibwa," he said, his voice carrying effortlessly through the suddenly quiet space. "Say it again." The entire restaurant seemed to hold its breath. Conversations died mid-sentence. Chopsticks paused halfway to mouths. Even the soft K-indie music playing through hidden speakers felt too loud. Amanda stood frozen at her hostess station, her heart slamming against her ribs, very aware that she'd just made a catastrophic mistake. "Repeat that," the man said again. Switching to English now, his accent barely noticeable. "This time, look at me. Let me back up. My name is Amanda Hayes, and I'm 26 years old. 3 months ago, I was nobody particularly important, just another graduate student drowning in debt, working nights to survive in a city that charged Manhattan rent on a graduate stipend salary. I'm African American, born and raised in Brooklyn by a single mother who worked 2 jobs to put me through private school. My mother, Regina Hayes, had dreams bigger than our tiny Bed-Stuy apartment, dreams she'd invested entirely in me, her only daughter. When I was 14, Mom married Daniel Park, a Korean-American social worker she'd met at a community center where she volunteered. Daniel had been patient, kind, and unexpectedly delighted by my teenage curiosity about everything. When I'd asked him to teach me Korean, mostly out of boredom that first summer, he'd taken the request seriously. Language is a gift, he'd told me, spreading flashcards across our kitchen table. It lets you see the world through different eyes. For 3 years, Daniel taught me. We watched K-dramas together with subtitles off. He corrected my pronunciation, laughed at my mistakes, celebrated my progress. Korean became our private language, the thing that made me his daughter not by blood, but by choice. Then, when I was 17, Daniel died. Heart attack, sudden and devastating. Mom never remarried, and I kept speaking Korean, kept studying it through college and into graduate school, kept it alive like a living memorial to the man who taught me that family was more than genetics. Now I was in my 2nd year of a PhD program at Columbia, studying sociolinguistics and code switching in multilingual communities. My research focused on how people navigated identity through language, how switching between tongues could be armor or intimacy or rebellion. But PhDs don't pay rent in New York City, so 4 nights a week, I worked as a hostess at Moonlight, one of those trendy Korean fusion spots that charged $50 for bibimbap and catered to Manhattan's elite. I smiled. I seated people. I bowed slightly when appropriate. I made myself pleasant and invisible and safe. And sometimes, when customers were particularly awful, I cursed them quietly in Korean, secure in the knowledge that they'd never understand. Until tonight. The man at table 7 had arrived 30 minutes ago without a reservation, something that should have been impossible at Moonlight. But our manager, Mr. Kim, had nearly tripped over himself rushing to accommodate him. "Mr. Kang," Mr. Kim had said, his usual composure cracking into something close to panic. "We're honored. Your usual table?" "Of course." Table 7, corner position, maximum privacy, best view of the restaurant. Mr. Kim had literally asked another party to move. I'd watched from my station, cataloging details with the observational habits of someone trained in research. The man was in his mid-30s, maybe, tall, at least 6'2", with the kind of build that suggested he knew his way around a gym. His suit was black, perfectly tailored, the kind you got from having a personal tailor rather than shopping at department stores. His dark hair was styled back from his face, revealing sharp cheekbones and a jawline that could cut glass. Handsome, objectively. The kind of handsome that knew it was a weapon. He had 2 men with him, security, clearly, who'd positioned themselves near the entrance with the strategic awareness of people trained in protection. They wore dark suits too, but cheaper ones. The difference between the boss and the help. I knew the type. Manhattan was full of wealthy men who wielded power like it was their birthright, who treated service workers as furniture with pulses. When Mr. Kang had snapped his fingers at Ji-won, literally snapped like summoning a dog, something hot and familiar had risen in Amanda's chest. Ji-won was 22, working 3 jobs to send money back to her family in Busan. She was kind, hardworking, and deserved better than being treated like she was invisible. So Amanda had muttered it, quiet enough that only she should have heard, "Geonbangji nansek." Arrogant bastard. Korean was supposed to be safe. It was her private language, her armor, the code she used when the world got too heavy. Except Kang Jae-won had understood every syllable. Now he was looking at her, really looking at her, with an expression that was equal parts amusement and assessment, like he was seeing her for the first time and finding her unexpectedly interesting. "Dashi haibwa," he repeated, softer now, but no less commanding. "Say it again." Amanda's mind raced through options. Apologize profusely, claim it was a misunderstanding, play dumb, pretend she'd been practicing language lessons and hadn't meant anything by it. But something in his expression, that slight smile, the challenge in his eyes, sparked something reckless in her. Maybe it was exhaustion from working 60-hour weeks. Maybe it was the accumulated weight of 3 years spent making herself small and polite and invisible. Maybe it was just that she was tired of men like him expecting the world to bend. Amanda lifted her chin, met his dark eyes directly, and repeated clearly, "Geonbangji nansek." The silence that followed was absolute. Mr. Kim looked ready to faint. Ji-won had gone pale. The other diners were watching with the fascinated horror of people witnessing a car crash. Then Kang Jae-won laughed. It was genuine, surprised and delighted, and it completely transformed his face from intimidating to something far more dangerous. Beautiful even. "Yongi neo," he said, still smiling. "You're brave. Or possibly foolish, but definitely brave." He stood, and Amanda noticed for the first time how he commanded space. Not through aggression, but through sheer presence, like gravity had to work a little harder around him. He gestured to his security team, said something in rapid Korean too quiet for Amanda to catch, then walked toward the exit. But as he passed her station, he paused. "What's your name?" he asked in English. Amanda hesitated. Giving her name felt like giving him ammunition. But lying seemed pointless when he could easily ask Mr. Kim. "Amanda?" she said. "Amanda." He repeated it like he was tasting the syllables, seeing how they fit. His eyes swept over her, not leering, more like memorizing, taking in her dark skin, her natural hair pulled back in a professional bun, her simple black dress that was her uniform. Then he pulled a card from his pocket and set it on her station. Sleek black metal, expensive weight, with just a name and phone number embossed in silver. Kang Jae-won. "I have a feeling we'll see each other again. Amanda Hayes." He said her full name like he already knew it, like he'd done his research in the 30 seconds between her insult and his departure. Then he was gone, his security team falling into formation behind him, leaving only the scent of expensive cologne and the card glinting on her podium. Amanda stared at it, her hands trembling slightly. "Do you have any idea who that was?" Mr. Kim hissed the moment the door closed. He'd switched to Korean, his tone frantic. "Gyunin Kangawi Sangsokin Ida. He's the Kang family heir." Amanda's stomach dropped. The Kang family? They own half of Koreatown. Import-export, restaurants, real estate. Mr. Kim lowered his voice even further. "Gugum Jojik Beomjwe Gwalyandwe Itda." They're connected to organized crime. The words hung in the air like smoke. Organized crime. Mafia. The kind of power that didn't just buy influence but commanded it through fear and violence. And Amanda had just insulted him. Twice. "I need you to go home," Mr. Kim said, not unkindly. "Take a few days. I'll see if I can smooth this over." "Are you firing me?" "I'm keeping you alive," Mr. Kim said bluntly. "Kang Jae-won is dangerous, Amanda. He's not like the other wealthy clients. He stopped, seemed to reconsider how much to say. "Just go. And if he contacts you, be very, very careful." Amanda took the subway home to her studio apartment in Washington Heights, the black card burning a hole in her jacket pocket. She should throw it away. Should forget tonight ever happened? Should be grateful Mr. Kim was giving her a chance to disappear? Instead, she sat on her bed in the dark, turning the card over in her hands, feeling the weight of it. Kang Jae-won. She pulled out her laptop and started researching. What she found was fascinating and terrifying in equal measure. Kang Jae-won, 35, was the only son of Kang Min-jun, who'd immigrated to New York in the 1980s and built a business empire spanning restaurants, real estate, and import-export operations. On paper, everything was legitimate. In reality, according to several true crime blogs and one investigative journalism piece from 3 years ago, the Kang family was deeply connected to Korean organized crime networks operating in the U.S. But unlike traditional mafia stereotypes, they were sophisticated. No flashy violence, no public displays. Just quiet power, strategic influence, and a network that touched everything from Koreatown businesses to high-level real estate deals. Jae-won had taken over operations 5 years ago when his father semi-retired. By all accounts, he was brilliant. Columbia MBA, fluent in 4 languages, connections that spanned continents. He'd modernized the family business, legitimized some operations, streamlined others. But underneath the polish, the rumors persisted. Money laundering, protection rackets disguised as security services, import operations that brought in more than just consumer goods. Amanda closed her laptop, her head spinning. She'd insulted a literal crime boss. To his face, in his own language. And instead of having her killed or even fired on the spot, he'd laughed. He'd called her brave, and he'd given her his card. 3 days passed. Amanda didn't go back to Moonlight. Mr. Kim had texted her once. Take the week, paid. Just lay low. She should have felt relieved. Instead, she felt restless, like she was waiting for something inevitable. On the 3rd night, her apartment building's ancient heating system died completely. It was early November, and New York was already cold. By midnight, Amanda could see her breath in her own apartment. She called the landlord. Voicemail. She called the emergency maintenance line. Someone will be there in 48 hours. Amanda wrapped herself in every blanket she owned and tried to study, but her fingers were too cold to type. Her research on code switching and identity seemed absurdly distant from the immediate problem of not freezing to death in her own home. At 1 a.m., her phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Amanda Hayes. The voice was male, smooth, vaguely familiar. This is Marco Chen. I work for Mr. Kang. Amanda's heart rate spiked. How did you get my number? Mr. Kang wants to know if you're well. He heard about the heating situation in your building. The casual surveillance in that statement made Amanda's skin crawl. He heard about my heating. Mr. Kang takes an interest in people who interest him. Marco's tone suggested this should be obvious. He's arranged for emergency repairs. A team will arrive within the hour. I didn't ask for... He's also arranged temporary accommodation at the Windsor Hotel if you'd prefer not to wait. A car can pick you up in 15 minutes. Amanda's pride warred with her practicality. She was freezing. Her research notes were on her laptop, which was dying because it was too cold to hold a charge. She had a morning meeting with her thesis advisor that she couldn't miss. Why? She asked. Why would he do this? Because you impressed him. Marco paused. And because Mr. Kang values potential. There was weight in that last word. Promise and threat combined. I don't need his help, Amanda said, even though it was a lie. Everyone needs help sometimes, Miss Hayes. Mr. Kang simply has the resources to provide it more efficiently than most. Another pause. The offer stands for 10 more minutes. After that, you're welcome to wait for your landlord's timeline. He hung up. Amanda sat in her freezing apartment, wrapped in blankets, staring at her phone. Pride said refuse. Survival said accept. Common sense said this was how people got entangled with dangerous men. Small favors that accumulated into debts. But it was so cold. And she was so tired. At 1:07 a.m., a text arrived. Car waiting downstairs. No obligations, just warmth. JW? Amanda grabbed her laptop and her phone charger and went downstairs. The car was a black Mercedes sedan with tinted windows and a driver who didn't speak. The interior was warm, blessedly, wonderfully warm, and Amanda felt her fingers start to tingle as circulation returned. They didn't go to the Windsor Hotel. They went to a building in Tribeca, all glass and steel, and the kind of wealth that didn't need to announce itself. The driver led her to a private elevator that required a key card, then deposited her on the 20th floor. The elevator opened directly into an apartment that was more like a luxury penthouse. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the Hudson River, minimalist furniture that was somehow both beautiful and comfortable. A kitchen that looked like it belonged in a magazine, and sitting on the leather couch, reading something on his tablet, was Kang Jae-won. He looked up when she entered, and that same assessing gaze swept over her. Tonight, he was dressed casually. Dark jeans, black t-shirt, expensive watch. Without the suit, he looked younger, more approachable. Still dangerous, though. That hadn't changed. "Amanda Hayes," he said, setting down the tablet. "Welcome." "You said the Windsor Hotel." "I said accommodation. I didn't specify." He gestured to the apartment. "This is mine. I'm not here most nights. You're welcome to stay until your building's heating is fixed, which," he glanced at his watch, "should be complete by tomorrow evening." Amanda stayed near the elevator, every instinct screaming that entering further was a mistake. "Why are you doing this?" "Because you interest me." "That's not an answer." "It's the only answer I have." Jae-won stood, moved to the kitchen, and started making tea with the casual competence of someone comfortable in his own space. "You insulted me in Korean. Not textbook Korean, real Korean, with the informal speech that native speakers use. You're African American, which means you learned it somewhere specific, from someone who cared enough to teach you properly." He poured 2 cups, brought one to her. Amanda took it automatically, the warmth seeping into her cold hands. "I'm curious about you," Jae-won continued, "about what brings a PhD student in sociolinguistics to work as a hostess, about why you'd risk insulting someone you clearly recognized as powerful, about what makes someone brave enough, or reckless enough, to double down when challenged." "I'm not that interesting," Amanda said. "I disagree." He sipped his tea. "You speak Korean fluently enough to curse accurately. You work at Moonlight, which means Mr. Kim trusts you with his most demanding clients. You're pursuing advanced research that probably doesn't pay well. And when faced with someone dangerous, your first instinct isn't fear, it's defiance." He moved closer, not threateningly, but with clear intent. "That's interesting, Amanda. That's someone who's been underestimated her whole life and learned to bite back." Amanda's throat felt tight. He was right, and that was terrifying, that he could see her so clearly after one brief encounter. "What do you want from me?" she asked quietly. "Right now? I want you to not freeze in your apartment. I want you to sleep in a warm bed and finish your work and go to your morning meeting without frostbite." He paused. "Tomorrow, we'll talk about what comes next." "And if I leave right now?" "Then you leave. The car will take you wherever you want to go. No strings, no expectations, no debt." His dark eyes held hers. "But you're smart enough to know that refusing help out of pride is just another form of self-sabotage." He was right about that too. Amanda hated that he was right. "Guest room is down that hall," Jae-won said, pointing. "Private bathroom, fresh towels, phone charger on the nightstand. I'll be gone by 7 a.m. Help yourself to anything in the kitchen." He picked up his tablet and walked toward what was presumably his own room, then paused at the doorway. "Jal Jayo. Amanda. Sleep well." "Jal Jayo," she replied automatically. He smiled, that same dangerous smile from the restaurant, and disappeared into his room. Amanda stood alone in a crime boss's penthouse apartment, holding expensive tea, wondering what the hell she'd just agreed to. Amanda didn't sleep well. The guest room was beautiful, king-sized bed with sheets that probably cost more than her monthly rent, windows overlooking the river, silence so complete it felt unnatural after years of city noise filtering through cheap walls. But her mind wouldn't quiet. She was in Kang Jae-won's apartment, a man connected to organized crime who had the resources to track her movements and fix her building's heating with a single phone call, a man who looked at her like she was a puzzle he intended to solve. At 6:30 a.m., Amanda gave up on sleep and found her way to the kitchen. She made coffee using a machine that was definitely more expensive than her laptop, then stood by the windows watching the sun rise over the Hudson. "You're up early," Amanda startled, nearly spilling her coffee. Jae-won had emerged from his room, already dressed for the day in another immaculate suit. Charcoal today, with a white shirt and no tie. His hair was still slightly damp from the shower. Couldn't sleep, Amanda admitted. Guilty conscience? Confused conscience. That earned her a slight smile. He poured his own coffee, then joined her by the windows. For a moment, they stood in silence, watching the city wake up. Your building's heating was repaired 3 hours ago, Jaewon said. I received confirmation at 4 a.m. You can go home whenever you'd like. Just like that? Just like that. He turned to face her. But before you go, I have a proposition. Here it was. The real reason for the rescue, the kindness, the interest. I need a translator, Jaewon said. Not for business documents or tourist conversations. I need someone who understands Korean at a native level. Slang, idiom, subtext. Someone who can listen to recorded conversations and tell me not just what's being said, but what's being meant. Amanda's researcher brain immediately caught the implications. You mean intercepted communications? Wiretaps. I mean intelligence gathering, he corrected. I have business interests that span multiple countries and cultures. Understanding what my partners and competitors are actually saying, not just the words, but the intention, is valuable. That's illegal. Many things are illegal. That doesn't make them unethical. His gaze was steady. I'm not asking you to help me hurt people, Amanda. I'm asking you to help me understand them. And what do I get in return? 2 things. First, money. $50,000 for 3 months of work. No more than 10 hours a week. You keep your other jobs, continue your research, maintain your life. This is supplemental income. Amanda's breath caught. $50,000. That was more than she made in a year from her graduate stipend and moonlight combined. That was enough to actually pay down her student loans instead of just treading water. That was security. And second, she managed, protection. Jaewon's voice was serious now. New York can be dangerous for people working multiple jobs, commuting late at night, navigating spaces where they're not always welcome. Work for me, and you work under my protection. No one touches you, no one threatens you, no one even looks at you wrong. Because I'd belong to you. Because you'd matter to me. The distinction was subtle but important. I don't own people, Amanda. I invest in them, and I protect my investments. Amanda moved away from the window, needing space to think. This was insane. She'd be working for a criminal organization, helping them spy on people, crossing legal and ethical lines she'd never thought she'd approach. But $50,000 and protection, and the chance to actually use her Korean fluency for something other than cursing customers who'd never understand. What kind of conversations would I be translating? She asked. Business negotiations primarily. Some personal communications between associates. Nothing violent. You wouldn't hear anything about anyone being hurt. That's not how my organization operates. But you do hurt people. Sometimes. He didn't deny it, didn't soften it. When people try to hurt me or mine first. When negotiation fails and force becomes necessary. When someone crosses a line that can't be uncrossed. He paused. But you wouldn't be involved in that side. You'd be intelligence only. Analysis, translation, understanding. Amanda thought about her research, about code switching and identity and how people use language to navigate power. This would be the ultimate case study, seeing how actual organized crime figures communicated, what linguistic patterns they used, how they built trust or signaled threat through word choice. It was academically fascinating. It was also morally complicated in ways her research ethics board would absolutely not approve. I need to think about it, Amanda said. Of course. Jaewon pulled out his phone, typed something, then showed her the screen. This is a contract. 3 months, $50,000, payment on completion, confidentiality requirements. Exit clause if you decide it's not for you after 1 month. You keep the prorated payment, no questions asked. You had this prepared already. I'm a businessman, Amanda. I plan ahead. He pocketed the phone. Think about it. The offer stands for 1 week. After that, I find someone else and we go back to being strangers who had one interesting conversation in a restaurant. Amanda nodded, gathered her things, and let Jaewon's driver take her home. For 3 days, Amanda tried to forget about the offer. She attended classes, worked on her research, returned to her shifts at Moonlight where Mr. Kim watched her nervously, and Jiwon kept asking if she was okay. But $50,000 kept echoing in her head. Security. Stability. the chance to actually focus on her PhD instead of constantly juggling work and school and exhaustion. On the fourth day, her laptop died, completely, irreparably dead. The repair shop quoted her $1,200, money she absolutely didn't have. That night, Amanda pulled out the black card she'd kept in her wallet and called the number. J1 answered on the second ring. "Amanda, I'll do it," she said. 3 months. But I have conditions. "I'm listening." "I don't participate in anything violent. I don't translate anything that will directly lead to someone being hurt. If I think you're using my work for something I can't live with, I walk away, and you let me." "Agreed." "And you teach me." Pause. "Teach you what?" "How your world works. The organizational structure, the power dynamics, the actual business operations. If I'm going to help you understand other people, I need to understand you first." Another pause. Longer this time. "You want to study me?" Jaewon said, and she could hear the amusement in his voice. "I want to understand what I'm part of. That's the only way I can do this ethically." "Ethically," he repeated. "You're working for a criminal organization and you're worried about ethics." "Ethics aren't all or nothing," Amanda said. "They're contextual, situational. I need to understand the context before I can navigate it. You're either very principled or very naive." "Can't I be both?" Jaewon laughed, that same genuine sound from the restaurant. "All right, Amanda Hayes, you want an education? I'll give you one. When can you start?" "Tomorrow. Then I'll send a car at 7 p.m. We'll begin." The car picked Amanda up outside her building at exactly 7 p.m. Same driver, same silence, but this time they went to a different location. An office building in Midtown with a small brass plaque, Kang International Holdings. The lobby was sleek, modern, professional. Nothing about it screamed organized crime. Just another import-export company in a city full of them. Jaewon met her on the 15th floor, in a corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows and minimal furniture. He gestured to a chair across from his desk. "First lesson," he said without preamble. "Everything my family does has 3 layers. The surface layer is completely legitimate. Restaurants, import businesses, real estate holdings. We pay taxes, follow regulations, maintain public reputations." He pulled up a document on his computer, turned the screen to show her. "The second layer is what I call strategic ambiguity. We provide services that exist in legal gray areas. Security for businesses that can't or won't use traditional police protection. Loans to people who can't access traditional banking. Dispute resolution for communities that don't trust the legal system. Protection rackets and loan sharking," Amanda translated. "Protection services and alternative financing," Jaewon corrected. "Words matter, Amanda. We don't threaten people into paying for protection. We offer a service they genuinely need because the NYPD doesn't patrol Koreatown the way it patrols Midtown. We don't trap people in predatory loans. We offer money when banks won't, at rates they can actually negotiate. But there are consequences if they don't pay. There are consequences when you don't pay Wells Fargo either," Jaewon said. "The difference is we're more direct about it." He closed that document, opened another. "The third layer is what you're probably imagining when you think mafia. This is the part I won't discuss in detail, and the part you'll never be involved with. But I'll tell you this much. It exists to protect the first 2 layers. When someone threatens our legitimate businesses or our community services, when violence comes to us, we respond with force. Strategic, controlled, but absolute." Amanda processed this. "So, I'm working in Layer 2. You're working in Layer 1, providing intelligence that helps Layer 2 operate more effectively while protecting Layer 3 from ever needing to activate." He leaned back. "You'll translate business communications, mostly. Negotiations, contract discussions, partnership proposals. Occasionally personal communications between people I need to understand better. Your job is to tell me what they're really saying. And when what they're really saying is that they're planning to betray you, then I'll know before it happens, and I'll handle it before it becomes a problem." He held her gaze. "Your translation might lead to someone losing a business opportunity or a partnership. It won't lead to violence unless that person chooses violence first. I don't make first strikes, Amanda, but I always make last strikes." It was terrifying how reasonable he made it sound, like organized crime was just strategic business management with extra steps. Second lesson, Jae-won continued, the Korean crime families in New York aren't like the Italian mafia you see in movies. We're quieter, more sophisticated, more integrated into legitimate business. We're also more hierarchical. Respect, reputation, and relationships matter more than raw violence. He showed her another document, this one an organizational chart. This is the structure. My father built it over 30 years. I've been running it for 5. There are 3 other major Korean families operating in the metro area. We maintain territories, honor agreements, and avoid open conflict because war is bad for business. Unless someone breaks the agreement. Jae-won confirmed. Then we respond proportionally and make sure everyone remembers why the agreements exist in the first place. Amanda studied the chart, committing names and relationships to memory. This was exactly the kind of information her research could use. Real organizational structures of actual multilingual criminal networks. Academically, it was gold. Ethically, it was deeply compromised. Third lesson, Jae-won said. The work you'll do is compartmentalized. You'll hear conversations without knowing the full context. You'll translate without knowing what I do with the information. This is for your protection as much as operational security. If you don't know details, you can't be held accountable for them. Plausible deniability. Exactly. He closed the laptop. Your work starts next week. I'll send you recordings via encrypted file transfer. You'll transcribe and analyze, send back reports. We'll meet once a week to discuss anything that requires clarification. Most of the time, this will feel like a very well-paid research project. And the times it doesn't? Then you'll have to decide if $50,000 is worth the discomfort of knowing things you wish you didn't. It was a fair warning. Amanda appreciated the honesty, even if it unsettled her. Why me? She asked suddenly. You could hire professional translators, people with actual intelligence experience. Why hire a graduate student who insulted you in a restaurant? Jae-won smiled. Because professional translators think like professionals. They translate words accurately, but they don't understand subtext the way you do. Your research is literally about how people use language to navigate identity and power. That's exactly what I need. Someone who sees patterns, understands code switching, recognizes when someone's performing versus when they're being genuine. He stood, moved around the desk to lean against it, closer to her now. And because you insulted me when you thought I wouldn't understand, that tells me you're honest when you think no one's watching. People like that are rare, Amanda. I value rarity. Amanda felt heat rise in her cheeks. This close, she could smell his cologne, something cedar and smoke, and see the faint scar along his left eyebrow that suggested his life hadn't always been business meetings and expensive suits. When do I sign? She asked. Jae-won pulled out his phone, sent something. A moment later, Amanda's phone buzzed. The contract, in full. She read it carefully. All the clauses about confidentiality, the payment structure, the exit terms, everything was exactly as he'd promised. No hidden gotchas, no exploitation. Amanda signed digitally, then sent it back. Welcome to the organization, Amanda Hayes, Jae-won said. I think this is going to be very interesting. The first recording arrived 3 days later. Amanda downloaded it onto her personal laptop via the encrypted platform Jae-won had set up. Military-grade security that felt excessive until she remembered who she was working for. The conversation was 20 minutes long, 2 men speaking Korean, casual but coded. They were discussing a shipment that was delayed at customs with paperwork issues that needed special handling. Amanda transcribed it word for word first, then added her analysis. This conversation is using business language to discuss something non-standard. The phrase special handling with the specific verb they chose suggests they're talking about bribing customs officials rather than legitimate paperwork processing. The tone is frustrated but not panicked. This is a routine problem they've encountered before. One speaker is deferential to the other, suggesting hierarchy. Recommend follow-up on who their customs contact is and whether this creates vulnerability. She sent the report back and continued her regular life. Classes, research, the occasional shift at moonlight when her schedule allowed. 2 days later, Jae-won called. Your analysis was excellent. The customs angle was exactly right, and we've already addressed the vulnerability. Well done. Just doing what you hired me for. You're doing more than that. You're thinking strategically. Pause. We should meet. I want to discuss your methodology. They met at a coffee shop in Columbia's neighborhood. Neutral ground, public, completely innocent looking. Jaewon wore jeans and a leather jacket, looking young enough to pass for a graduate student himself. You added context I didn't ask for, he said, after ordering Americanos for both of them. The hierarchy observation, the recommendation about vulnerability, that's analysis beyond translation. Is that a problem? It's valuable. I want more of it. He pulled out his tablet, showed her another recording. This one's different. Personal conversation between two associates who used to be friends. Listen for subtext. Are they actually reconciling or performing reconciliation because someone told them to? Amanda listened right there in the coffee shop. Jaewon's expensive headphones drowning out the ambient noise. The conversation was stilted, full of formal language that should have been casual given their history. They're performing, Amanda said after 15 minutes. The intimacy isn't genuine. They're using polite forms where friends would use informal. Someone did tell them to reconcile, and they're going through the motions, but neither of them believes it. That's what I thought, but I wanted confirmation. Jaewon looked satisfied. One of them is going to betray the other within 6 months. Now I know which relationship to watch. Amanda felt a chill. Her analysis was directly feeding into Jaewon's strategic planning. People's lives were shifting based on her linguistic observations. Is this bothering you? Jaewon asked, reading her expression. Yes, Amanda admitted. But I'm not sure if that means I should stop, or if ethical discomfort is just part of the price. It should bother you. The day it doesn't, you've lost something essential. He finished his coffee. But remember, you're not causing the betrayal. You're just helping me see it before it becomes dangerous. These men chose their path. You're just translating the language they used to walk it. It was a rationalization, but not an unreasonable one. Over the next month, the work became routine. Amanda would receive recordings, transcribe and analyze them, send reports back. Once a week, she'd meet with Jaewon to discuss anything complicated. She learned to recognize voices, to pick up on patterns, to understand the full context of the Kang organization's operations without ever being told explicitly. She was getting good at it, good enough that Jaewon started sending her more sensitive material, more complicated conversations. And somewhere in that month, something shifted. The meetings with Jaewon became less about work and more about conversation. He asked about her research, actually read her published papers, engaged with her theories about code switching and identity. He was brilliant, genuinely, intimidatingly brilliant, and discussing linguistics with him felt like verbal sparring with someone who could actually keep up. You code switch constantly, Amanda observed during one meeting. Professional English in business, casual Korean with your team, formal Korean with elders, street Korean with enforcement. You perform different identities depending on context. Don't we all? Jaewon countered. You speak differently at Columbia than at Moonlight. Your academic voice versus your service voice. That's code switching too. But I'm not using it to manipulate people. Aren't you? When you're sweet and polite to a rude customer, you're performing an identity that gets you better tips. That's manipulation, just socially acceptable manipulation. It was infuriating how often he was right. 6 weeks in, Amanda realized she was looking forward to their meetings, not just for the intellectual challenge, but for him, for the way he looked at her like she was the most interesting person in the room, for the way he remembered details about her life and asked follow-up questions, for the careful way he never touched her, but somehow felt present even across the space between them. This was dangerous, more dangerous than the work itself. Because Amanda was starting to care about Kang Jae-won, and caring about a crime boss was the fastest way to compromise everything she believed about herself. The call came at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday. Amanda was deep in sleep when her phone's ringtone, set to maximum volume for emergencies, jerked her awake. Jae-won's name on the screen, which had never happened before. He only called during business hours, maintained professional boundaries. Hello? Amanda's voice was rough with sleep. I need you. Now. I'm sending a car. Jaewon's voice was tight, controlled, but underneath it, Amanda heard something she'd never heard from him before. Fear. What happened? I'll explain when you get here. 15 minutes. Please, Amanda. The line went dead. Amanda dressed in a daze. still half asleep but adrenaline sharpening her awareness. The car was waiting downstairs, and this time it took her to a building she didn't recognize in Queens. Industrial neighborhood, warehouse district, the kind of place that was empty at night. Inside, past security that looked more like soldiers than guards, Amanda found Jae-won in what looked like a converted office space. He was pacing, phone in hand, his usual composure shattered. "What's wrong?" Amanda asked. "My sister." Jae-won's voice was strained. She was supposed to land at JFK 3 hours ago coming home from Seoul. Her plane landed, but she never came through customs. Airport security says she's not in the building. Her phone is off. And he thrust his phone at Amanda. On the screen was a video clearly taken in a car. A young woman, early 20s, beautiful, terrified, bound and gagged in the back seat. Someone off camera, speaking Korean. "Play it," Jae-won said. "Tell me what he's saying. Every word, every nuance." Amanda's hands shook as she pressed play. The man's voice was cold, educated, speaking formal Korean with a Seoul accent. "강재원에게 전달하세요. 당신 위 여동생이 우리와 함께 있습니다. 당신이 원하는 거들 돌려줄 좀비가 될 티텍까지 그녀는 안정할 것입니다." Amanda's blood ran cold. He says, "Deliver this to Kang Jae-won. Your sister is with us. She will remain safe until you're ready to return what belongs to us." "What else?" Jae-won demanded. Accent? Background noise? Anything? Amanda played it again, listening with every bit of training she had. Seoul accent, educated, probably 40 plus based on the formality level. There's traffic noise, highway, not city streets. And she listened again. Someone else is in the car. I can hear breathing. 2 distinct patterns. There's at least one other person we don't see. Can you identify the voice? Have you heard it in any of the recordings I've sent you? Amanda's mind raced through weeks of translations. Voices, patterns, speech habits. Play the recording from 3 weeks ago, the one about the customs dispute. Jae-won pulled it up on his tablet. Amanda listened, comparing. It's not the same person, but it's the same organization. The speech patterns are similar. Same formality level, same Seoul accent family. Whoever took your sister is connected to whoever you were having the customs problem with. Jae-won's jaw clenched. Lee Min-ho. He's been trying to expand into my territory for 6 months. I've been blocking him through legitimate business channels. This is him escalating. What are you going to do? Whatever it takes to get Hana back. Jae-won's voice was steel. But first, I need to understand exactly who we're dealing with. Amanda, I need you to listen to every recording I have of Lee's organization. Find patterns, find weaknesses, find anything I can use. Jae-won, this is beyond translation. This is life and death, he interrupted. My sister's life. I need you, Amanda. Please. Amanda had never seen him like this. Desperate, vulnerable, the careful control stripped away by fear for someone he loved. Show me everything, Amanda said. I'll find what you need. They worked through the night. Jae-won pulled up every recording he had of Lee Min-ho's organization. Dozens of conversations spanning months. Amanda listened to them all, taking notes, finding patterns. By dawn, she'd assembled a profile. Lee is cautious but arrogant, Amanda reported, her voice hoarse from hours of work. He uses formal language even with close associates, which suggests he values hierarchy and control. But his arrogance makes him predictable. He has a pattern of announcing plans before executing them because he wants people to know he's clever. She pulled up 3 specific recordings. In these, he references a warehouse in Flushing, where he keeps special inventory. He never says it directly, but the context suggests it's where he holds things, or people, he doesn't want found. If your sister is anywhere, she's likely there. Jae-won stared at her. You found that from speech patterns? I found it from context clues, verbal tics, and the way his associates defer to specific locations. Language reveals geography, Jae-won. You just have to know how to listen. He pulled her into a sudden, fierce embrace. Amanda stiffened in surprise, then slowly relaxed, her arms coming up to return it. Thank you, Jae-won breathed against her hair. Thank you. When he pulled back, his hands stayed on her shoulders, his dark eyes searching hers. I'm going to get Hana. And after this is over, we need to talk. About what? About the fact that you're not just my translator anymore. His voice was quiet. About the fact that I trust you more than people I've known for years. About why I called you first when my family was in danger. Amanda's breath caught. Jaewon, later, he said, after I bring my sister home. But Amanda... He hesitated, then continued in Korean. 당신은 나에게 중요합니다. You matter to me. Then he was gone, calling his security team, organizing a response, becoming the crime boss again instead of the frightened brother. Amanda sat in the office, exhausted and wired, and realized she'd just crossed another line. She hadn't just translated for him, she'd helped him plan a rescue operation, possibly a violent one. And she didn't regret it at all. 3 months later, Jaewon got his sister back. Amanda never learned the full details, maintained her compartmentalized ignorance. But Hana came home safe, Lee Min-ho's organization was dismantled, and the warehouse in Flushing turned out to house more than just one kidnapping victim. The 3-month contract ended. Jaewon called Amanda to his Tribeca apartment, the same place she'd stayed that first night, to discuss renewal. Double the rate, he said. 100,000 for another 3 months. Same terms, same work, same protection. Amanda had her PhD research to finish. She had her dissertation to write. She had the life she'd planned before a crime boss had walked into a restaurant. But she also had $50,000 in the bank, and memories of late-night conversations about linguistics and power, and the way Jaewon had looked at her the morning Hana came home. Like Amanda was the answer to a question he'd been asking his whole life. I'll do it, Amanda said, but not as an employee. Then as what? As a consultant, independent contractor. I work when I want, on what I want, with veto power over any assignment that crosses my ethical lines. She met his gaze. And as someone who's allowed to ask questions about who you are, not just what you do. Questions like what? Like why you called me that night instead of the dozen other people in your organization who could have helped. Like why you trust me. Like what you meant when you said I matter to you. Jaewon moved closer, that same predatory grace from the restaurant. You want to know if this is just business or if it's something more? Yes. It stopped being just business the moment you insulted me in Korean, and I realized you were fearless enough to mean it. His hand came up to her face, gentle, asking permission. I don't know exactly what this is, Amanda, but I know that when my world fell apart, you were the person I needed. And I know that I think about you more than I should, and in ways that have nothing to do with your translation skills. Amanda's heart was racing. This is a terrible idea. Probably. You're a crime boss. I'm an academic. We exist in completely different worlds. You speak my language, Jaewon said quietly, literally and figuratively. That's rarer than you think. Gaeon Bangji Nansek, Amanda whispered. Arrogant bastard. Jaewon smiled. That dangerous, beautiful smile. Dashi haibwa. Say it again. Gaeon Bangji Nansek. He kissed her then, and Amanda kissed him back, crossing the last line between professional and personal, between safe and reckless, between who she'd been and who she was becoming. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Jaewon pressed his forehead to hers. I'm not a good man, Amanda, he said in Korean, but I could be better for you. Then be better, Amanda replied in the same language, but don't stop being dangerous. I think I like you dangerous. His laugh was low and genuine. Stay, not just for work. Stay with me. Figure out what this is. Amanda thought about her research on code switching and identity, about how people navigated different worlds through language, about how the bravest thing wasn't choosing one identity or the other, but learning to live authentically in the space between. Okay, she said, I'll stay. Even knowing what I am, especially knowing what you are. Amanda smiled. Someone has to keep insulting you in Korean. Might as well be me. Jaewon kissed her again, and Amanda Hayes, PhD student, translator, reluctant consultant to organized crime. And now, something more. Decided that some lines were worth crossing, especially when crossing them felt like coming home.